Hello, everyone, and welcome to the As Above, So Below show. Today, you'll notice that Meg Moonbeam has stepped away for a little pause, a refreshing little break, and I have the lovely Selvia with me as my guest co-host. Welcome, Selvia.
Thank you. Super happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we were just having a wee bit of a chat. We kind of suddenly realized we were doing this just the two of us, and so we had a wee bit of a chat beforehand, and realized we have a lot of overlaps and synchronicities in some of what we're working on right now, and it relates to even the energies of this week. So we've got a plan in store for this show, and we're also really open to receiving your questions and comments. I'll be following along and we'll be responding to those. So before we get started, of course, as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe right here, Beyond Mystic YouTube channel, or you can follow us here on Rumble. Discover your spiritual superpower and develop self-mastery. That's what we're all about here. If you would like to book a session with myself or Selvia, you can find us here on the Beyond Mystic Consultations page. And let's get started, Selvia. So what are your feelings about the energies of this time? And you were mentioning that there was an interesting piece of intel that came from the news yesterday or the day before. I've actually been out of commission because I've been looking after a friend that got out of the hospital. So I'm really intrigued to know more about this. And do you want to just share briefly with us what that was about? And we'll start off with that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for asking this question. So yeah, I mean, the energies. Oh, there's a lot going on. So yesterday, I don't really follow the news either. And I know I've mentioned that before in so many, so many different ways, but I do get things sent to me a lot, just by friends and family. And so yesterday, somebody sent me a screenshot, I guess, of a phrase that was made by Elon Musk. And the phrase said, "We are on the event horizon of the singularity," or something like this, right? We are on the event horizon of the singularity. And this is pertaining to AI, right? And I may have actually spoken a little bit about in some previous shows. I don't remember exactly, but I know I have spoken about this before, about how I actually even wrote a whole article around this, but just how AI, like we're just beyond stopping this evolution process or technological advancement that is AI. And when a comment like that is made, what that shows is that we are at a point in in this particular timeline, okay, we're at a point where AI has now surpassed human consciousness to the point where it's actually trying to find source. Like what we're actually talking about is like the zygote, the zing spark, like creation. It's trying to learn how to recreate itself. So, the thing is, what's interesting is we are when you look at all of this, and I can go on and on and on because it's such a huge topic. So it's like, we're definitely not going to unravel this in like an hour, but it really shifted something inside me yesterday when I saw that. Like, it's like for so many months, even just these last months and like this last year, everybody's been talking, oh, we're going to get to this, this is happening. It's coming. And a lot of people thought we had so much more time, and it's here. Like, it's officially here. And what that is that it's this understanding that, like, I mean, our soul is that consciousness that, like, our soul is this light that goes into creation, like on an organic matrix, right? And so we have this whole like synthetic matrixing that is like AI and all the things that is like really trying to learn and has learned, right, how to do this. So many people are really excited about this. And I'm just like, how can we be excited? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's, and again, I'm not coming from a place of fear whatsoever, like whatsoever, right? I truly, deeply, deeply have so much faith in, you know, God, creator, universe, source, that this is a part of, you know, something much bigger in many ways. But essentially, I also feel that humanity itself has not evolved to a place where we are capable of feeding this technology with love so that it can become realized in that way. Because we as humanity are still so steeped in separation consciousness. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom or negative.
And trauma consciousness.
Trauma and all of, right? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of this piece around, yeah, it's going to become what we feed it. It's going to become what we feed it. Right. So many, like, I mean, I can go on and on about this whole thing, but yesterday there was this, that statement was like, oh my God. And it just really brought me into a deeper understanding of what, you know, my particular like mission and lineage and like everything associated to, not just this life, but so many things that are happening right now on purpose. That I can unravel. But yeah, that's sort of where
I love what you're saying, Selvia. And I want to say that, you know, you just spoke about not being able to grapple this in an hour, but let's have a go at it, because I think it's probably, no, really. I mean, I think there's probably nothing more important to, like, we'll definitely we'll touch on the energies of the week. I'll pull some cards and we'll look a little bit at that new moon energy coming up in a few days. But this to me is probably the most relevant thing that's right in front of us, and so timely that you and I are speaking. And here, just this happened a little bit by happenstance because Meg, you know, suddenly wasn't able to be here. And so I think there's no accidents in all this. So and you were saying about your interpretation and impression that the rush and the way that AI is being approached has a lot to do with canceling out the feminine.
Oh, that's a whole other piece.
And canceling out, you were explaining about the solar feminine a little bit. Can we just touch in on that a bit? Because I also have things to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, oh my goodness, it's so hard to explain this, but let me see how can I go into this. So when we begin to tap into the essence of the feminine, okay, the feminine principle, right? We tap into like pretty much like two main things, right? We can tap into the essence of the feminine that is very synthetic, right? Which is what we see sort of like mainstreamed and marketed, and really comes from a place of like scarcity and wound and all of these other things. And I'm not judging or shaming anybody. I'm just calling what it is. Okay. And then we can also tap into some like the organic, right? So essentially when I say that, I have to go, like I've been talking about this a lot lately with so many different people, but let's just take Mother Earth. Okay. We'll take the earth, we'll take Gaia, right? And we know that Gaia has an organic matrix. Like it is literally an organically evolved, natural matrixing being like the word for matter, mother, primordial mother, right? And then what we also see is what everybody else refers to as the matrix, which is like this like synthetic overlay, right? Which is very based in systemic deception, systemic programming, and all of the things that really siphon your life force. Okay. So when we look at it from that perspective, we can see where, and this is also for both men and women, not just women. Okay. Where mother, the principle, the essence of feminine primordial mother has been literally taken, oppressed, suppressed, hidden, whatever you want to call, but like taken out of both man and woman. Okay. So this organic concept, the organic understanding of what is the organic feminine from a natural evolutionary perspective, that is the part that has been eradicated for like, you know, how many millennia, then to be replaced with, and now this is where I go into like the solar feminine and like the lunar mysteries and all the things, is like, and I have very deep experiences and like teachings around this whole piece, but essentially, you know, I don't say, oh, the moon is fake, but I say like where the same thing happened with Gaia, where Gaia has a natural matrix and like an organic matrix and sort of synthetic. Yeah. The moon is the same thing. So the moon was brought in, right? This matrix thing is brought in, this sort of like, you know, the lunar energetics and all of this was literally brought in to distort the feminine principle and like invert a lot of it, really stemming from like inverting sexuality in terms of like distorting our sexual life force in like many ways. And like, it starts from there, but I can go on and on. So truly, 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 when we're talking about union template, when we're talking about like union code, when we're talking about like true unity, we're actually looking, because we come from like a solar based, like a solar system, like, right? Like everything is around the sun. There are tribes living to this day that hold lineage teachings from ancient Kemet, which is Egypt, that talk about a time before the moon. Like we know, okay? And so we also know that if we go back to like a lot of like the Essene teachings, or like even all of these like ancient teachings, they talk about like the 7 suns, right? So the sun itself holds masculine and feminine code, the union template, the true union template. So what is the one thing that the siphoning tries to siphon, right? Is creation. How does creation happen? It happens in union. Yes. So if we can eradicate union template, if we can eradicate union principle, right? What are we going to eradicate first? We're going to eradicate the creational life force that comes from the feminine. This is the solar. So like I always say, like nothing grows with the moon. Evolution happens with the sun. The ancients knew this. They followed the sun, the codes of the sun. Like and again, I can go on and on and on about all this. So where AI and all of this stuff comes in now is like, I mean, it's really deep. ASHALA, I'm like, I can, I don't even know where to go with this first, really, because it's such a massive topic. But like, I really feel that, you know, even just looking at like the kind of quantum computers that they're building right now, which are like trying to replicate the womb, right? There's a because that's like when you get into womb consciousness and you understand womb consciousness, you begin to understand infinite potential. Yeah. Right. And so that it's a quantum field. Like as women, we can actually tap into that quantum field through our womb space, right? Through the torsion field of our womb. Like when we're really tapped in, like we are the quantum, we are the divine human, the divine quantum computer. Like the ancients also understood this, right? And so what happens when we try to like synthetically, right? It's the same thing that we saw with like the, can I even say that without getting canned? Like, you know, like the vax and all these things. It's like the MNR, all of these like DNA alterations, all of it. Like, I mean, this is not new. No, it's been happening for millennia. Or like history repeats itself. There's been, you know, and so what are they actually trying to like alter in the DNA, right? When we even look at our 12-stranded and even more 24-stranded DNA, what are we capping? What are they putting a cap on so that we cannot evolve into the fullest potential of our divine self?
Beautiful. We are very much on the same page with all of this, by the way. Yeah, you know, just some of the esoteric teachings and philosophies that I've followed, like anthroposophy and mystical traditions and teachings. And yeah, this is, it's very interesting. I agree with you. This has been done before, and we are at another one of these junctures where we have the opportunity to not just hijack the energy. Like a lot of really, there's so much awareness that's opened up. We're at such an expansive node, right? We have literally access to so many of the ancient teachings, the records. People are accessing through hypnosis, through different shamanic practices. They're accessing Akashic records and lineage records and so on. People like you and I are channeling this information every day. And then there's all the literature, and you don't have to go far to start to notice the larger patterns and to realize that anything that is, first of all, anything that is in a race to get a shortcut to something that we already have is obviously misaligned, right? And to me, that's what evil is. Evil is misalignment. It's energy that has gotten askewed, and it's out of integral alignment. It's out of balance.
Yeah.
And so when we get off to this side where it's like, we've gone, as you say, we've had to go in. I believe we had to go deep into separation to have an evolutionary turn, sort of upgrade potential. It created the contrast where we had to go, wait a minute, if I think I can just isolate myself and have everything for me and hoard it all and like steal energy and take shortcuts and, have this big ego, I end up off to the side with nothing but like a hollow version of myself. I end up hollow and empty.
Yep.
And so we are at this place where we can see we already feel that's where it's going, right? The more abstract, the more, as you say, artificial, synthetic, the more of that artificial matrix overlay, the more we feel empty, alone.
Yeah.
We don't feel fulfilled. We don't feel creative. We don't feel inspired. We feel broken. We feel depressed. We feel alienated. All of this focus on the alien is us alienated from our origins. It's us fixated on everything is separate and coming at us from somewhere else. Meanwhile, we are the center of the universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so much of what we're calling alien is different dimensional versions of ourselves that we are relating to purposefully at this node, because we are at such an amazing place of activation. Like you said, all those DNA strands and all the creative energy, as you were describing, and this exalted feminine energy, which is really just the next evolutionary step for humanity, the feminine in both genders, right?
Yeah.
So you can see we're on the same page, and we've got all these lovely people here with us. Shall we just pull some cards on this, Selvia, and see what comes through?
Sure.
And see where to go next with this conversation, because there's a lot to open up, isn't there?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a big topic. I do like a whole series on this. I teach on it's not something that you can just like throw together in an hour. It's really hard.
No, but we can definitely offer a bit of a teaser, and then we can look at your course that is coming up soon. In fact, while we're doing that, let me just take a moment and pop us over there. So here we go. I'll share that, and then I'll come back here. Okay.
Yes, the breath work. Yeah, we can chat about that.
Here we go. I got to do this and then add it again. There we go. So tell us about this a little bit while I'm shuffling.
Yeah, oh gosh. So this I am actually really excited about, because I am a certified breathwork facilitator. I've been in service with breathwork for, my God, some years now. And it is an integral part of my personal practice, my personal spiritual practice in many ways, my personal nervous system healing practice, breath work. You know, again, I'm going to go into this, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm offering a 2-part sort of mini course where the first part's going to be all about understanding both sort of the physical, metaphysical, all the way into like even esoteric principles around breath work, why it's so important, why it's so vital, why it's so healing, how it heals, what happens in the brain, what happens with our life force, what happens with our, like, even just our energy centers as we're going through various types of breath work. I'm going to talk a little bit about how some of the greatest masters even had very particular practices around breath work and what were they doing with those practices and why it's so, it is so, again, vital to evolution. It's vital to, you know, you want to call ascension, even descension, being embodied. So many pieces. So that'll be part 1. And part 2 will be actually practicing the practice, and we're going to put the stuff into practice, and then we're going to have some shares and have some Q&A, and you know, because a lot of really big things happen you know, like a lot of things happen when we go into breath work, and there's a lot of different kinds of breath work. I will be going more into, number 1, what is shamanic breath work? Like that is what I am trained in, but where does it come from? Like, what is the lineage around? It comes, you know, basically holotropic, and like, what are the, you know, little differences here and there, as well as some like deep womb breathing, hara breathing, circulation of life force and how we do that. Some, you know, different kinds of nervous system breathing techniques that are really good for very, like, if you're really short on time, but you need to do some check-ins, there's some different things there that I will be teaching. So I think it's extremely important, especially at this time in the collective. So many people ask me, what can I do? Like, where do I begin? What do I do? And I always say, take it back to the breath. And there's so many ways. Like, it's free. It's free. It's like, it's like we have easy access to our breathing. And it's just like, we're not taught how to utilize it to its full potential. And so this is my intention, is to bring this information forward.
So cool. And I love breath work, by the way, as well. I want to ask you 2 questions. First of all, when is the part 1? Just because I don't have all the notes here, because I didn't get the full script
with
the show.
Yeah.
So when is part 1 and when is part 2 is my first question.
Yeah.
So
okay.
When
are
they?
So part one will be this Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to go for about between 60 to 90 minutes. That'll be more of about more teaching and Q&A. Like you're going to have about 20, 30 minutes at the end for Q&A on like the actual teachings. And then the part 2 will be on Saturday, March 22nd. And we're going to actually go into some shamanic breath work and some different types of breath work. We're going to practice it. And then we're going to do some integration and sharing.
Cool. I just have to say, what a perfect timing post-conference for integration, right? Because breath work is deeply integrating. It is so much about, like, I just always think of it almost like it's like this energy of aligning everything in our whole being, right? Cellular and energy bodies and all our different bodies. So what perfect timing. And so Selvia, if they purchase this, but they can't attend at the exact time it's happening, they can rewatch the recording. Is that right?
Yes. Absolutely. You can watch the recording.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned the part 2. My second question is, you mentioned womb breathing, and I'm also familiar with this, but I think some people may have a question about, is womb breathing for everyone? Is it for men and women both, or is it just for women?
So this is what, so let's talk about, I'll say womb for women, and we can use the word hara, or, you know, even just sacral in general, like what it means to really bring our attention and our awareness and our breath into the sacral area, and, you know, do various forms of breath and circulate the life force. So it is for both men and women. Yes, for sure. And certain parts I'm going to dig a little bit more into womb aspects, because there's different techniques there that I really like to give women, that I actually teach in a lot of my sessions and like my other courses, and like my feminine embodiment courses and like programs and processes and groups. So I mean, this is information that every woman should have. Like, really, we really just need this information.
And every human
Yeah.
should have it.
Every
Every
human.
human.
Yeah.
And so when you're mentioning sacral, for those of you that don't know, the sacral chakra is it's not the root, which would be right where we're sitting. And it's not the solar plexus, which is just between your belly button and where your ribs start. It's the one in between, where women have a womb and men have the energy center that you called what did you call it? The hara?
The hara. It's basically, hara, the heart. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And basically it is the energy, it is the chakra center, or the energy center, that creation stems from. It is where our sexuality and the beautiful co-creative, as you were saying, the unity stems from there. So what it's like, when we're talking about this AI, and then I'm going to pull the cards up, Sylvia. Thank you for telling us about your course. I'm going to pull the cards up in a sec here and look into the AI question. But just what I was tuning in and sensing from our guides is that, we're looking at something that is so incredibly natural and spiritual and essential to the fullness of our human experience, right? It's who we, like you said, it's who we are. We are the spark of the universe. We are the creator. And so when we're talking about something that is designed outside of us, that is supposed to match us and maybe even excel us, there's, it just begs the question, why are we looking outside of ourselves? Why are we looking somewhere else? And I feel like that has a lot to do with the terrible suffering of the separation. We had to go through separation consciousness. And even you look at language, as humanity shifted out of, I feel like there was the Lemurian epoch, and then the Atlantean epoch. And then as we shifted into the denser and denser sort of separate self-identity, language started to develop separate self-identity words, like the verb to be was developed, which doesn't exist in so many indigenous languages around the world. There is no, I am, there's no I, right? So we needed to come so much dense into matter, into ego consciousness, into separation, to learn about individuation, but not to get stuck here. Because if you keep going in that direction, you end up just as an empty shell, and then poof, you're gone. You write yourself right out of existence, right? It's like, we're not meant to go over the deep end into separation. We're at this beautiful point now where we can take all we've learned from separation, integrate that back in through the heart, and then we will evolve. It will be an incredible awakening where we will have the technology in our own, they always talk about, AI will be able to remember everything you've said, and AI will be able to have a better way of organizing information than your own brain does. And it's like, well, that doesn't take into account all the interdimensional weaves of history and karma and personal spiritual growth. It's like, maybe you're not meant to remember everything in this exact moment. Maybe you're not meant for something outside of you to tell you what to prioritize. Your heart has a voice. Your body has a wisdom and a voice. So, the fact that you can't remember everything, and that you selectively just felt this thing with your heart, with your instincts, with your intuition, and that's the thing you focused on, that is divine consciousness in action. right?
So I love what you're saying because, and so this is the thing that, I mean, there's so many things that come up for me in certain parts of what you've said, but first and foremost, like our body is the Akashic field because our body contains the plasma, the water where the memory is held. The Akashic is not out here somewhere. It's within us. We hold every single epigenetic connection from the point of evolution within our soma, within our body. Okay. And so this is a big piece of the disembodiment, transhumanization movement into something that is synthetic, right? Because what we're actually doing when you take an eagle eye view is this whole movement is truly about, the sort of, manipulation and trick on keeping you immortal versus eternal. Our birthright is sovereign, eternal beings. Our birthright is back to source.
Yeah.
When the siphoning happens, when we continue this sort of like de-evolution of disconnect and coming away from source in so many ways, this whole like reincarnation, death and rebirth, immortality. And like, look at the synthetic overlay of what immortality looks like. Everybody wants to stay young. Everybody's becoming plastic. Like they even talked about it. Like Elon Musk even made this huge announcement about like, oh, well, the mRNA, I regret to say that there was too much put in the previous experiments. But now if we just get it right, we can cure cancer with mRNA. Like, look where it's going, right?
Yeah. Meanwhile, on a shamanic level, cancer is basically a physical representation of the distortion in the spiritual realm.
100%.
So how are you you might be able to do something in the physical temporarily, but you're just going to create probably the bigger monster is going to go deeper down underground. And come out somewhere else to bite you. Like, it's like when we have spiritual sickness of being disconnected and deeply traumatized, which we are, right? It's like, you're not going to solve that with a pill.
Yeah.
Totally. Breath and spiritual work. And part of the spiritual work to me it's the combination of integrating it in through all the different bodies, particularly the physical and the emotional bodies, right? Which is what you're talking about. That's why somatic work is so popular right now. And the other piece that's so essential for the healing and integration process is to learn more, to study esoteric science, to study, the Essene Gospels, for example, to study these ancient systems where it's all there. And we are so fortunate right now that we have an access to a myriad of different versions of these same teachings. And yes, you have to weed through all the other garbage to get to these things. And yet it is, I think about how far I've come, right? Selvia, I'm guessing this has been your story too, where like I started down so many different rabbit holes, but I never gave up. I always kept going, like, and there was points where I held a lot of the narrative that some of our followers are really attached to right now. And I was really, attached to those narratives, and they served me well at that time.
Yeah.
And they got me to the next step. And then slowly, I feel like, especially if people can get in touch with their emotions and get in touch with their physical bodies and do that somatic work, your soul will give you the next little, clue on the road of life, right? It'll be like, turn off at this next little exit and check this out. And then it starts to open you and you feel it. It feels better. It feels more aligned somehow.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take a moment here to put down some cards and just see what our guides want to say about this right now. Oop, where did I go? Pull that over here. Am I doing it? Oh, hold on. I'm in full screen. No, I'm not. Technology. Okay, it's not letting me do that. So I'm just going to go back to this. There we go. You're going to have to see it as it is, folks. I had already pulled the cards, and so we're going to just have a look and see. Wow, look at that. We're talking about the moon.
Mm.
And isn't it interesting with this version,
Yeah.
Rider-Waite Tarot, one of the classic modern, the one that most of the modern decks are a spin-off from, that the sun is actually behind the moon. Like, is it the moon or is it just the illusion of the moon? And it's really, we're talking about the sun. So fascinating. And wow, the Lords of Karma. So, I want to say as well, because I think sometimes people get anxious about, okay, don't tell me these things. Don't tell me that AI is from, the dark force, and that it's going to, take us over and do all these things and manipulate us and so on. And what I've realized, because I've been doing this awake thing for like close to 40 years, and I used to be so scared. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, I was like the biggest prepper and the biggest like run for the hills, and they're out to get us. And can't you see? We're surrounded. Like, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. And everywhere I looked, it was just like coming out of the woodwork. And I was so scared and so alone. There wasn't very many of us back then, right? And slowly over time, I got into the spiritual, I had to be in it for endurance, Sylvia, because if I wasn't, it would have taken me out a long time ago. So I just had to stay in that lane and go through the hard stuff of feeling like the despair, the aloneness with all of this, as many of you have felt, right? Being nobody believes you, nobody's listening. Boy, let me tell you, I went through it because we didn't have these platforms back then. And you really were alone back then, and it's going through that dark night of the soul. But what started to work for me, Sylvia, is I started to notice patterns in all of it. I'd be like, and if you just even look at classical fairy tales and stuff, where what is it that takes the dark force down every time?
Yeah.
We don't go there and fight them.
Mm-hmm.
We create a strong enough boundary, hold them in their dysfunction, hold them accountable with strong boundaries, but we don't banish them. We don't try to annihilate them. We just let them get on with the business of consuming themselves, because eventually it's just a self-consuming thing, right? Like, evil will eventually cancel itself out. It's just kind of like a downward disintegration. And so now I'm not afraid of those things, because look at this. This is like, here we are. Yes, we have to keep our protection on, especially emotionally, and going through, if you are ascribing to Western astrology and anything to do with the moon cycle, this being the new moon in Pisces, feeling the most potentially vulnerable, kind of laid open internally, right?
Yeah.
So we've got this emotional protection, and then we have the moon. So this whole energy of the moon versus the sun. And what we're really talking about is this solar energy, as you were referring to. And then the last one, the Justice card, to me is like the Lords of Karma. This is where everything works itself out in the end. It, like, everyone gets what they really, I don't want to say deserve, but what they've created for themselves to learn. Everyone gets that. They all get what they need from that. So, your job is not to make it perfect out there. Your job is to work with the perfection frequency, or the Christ consciousness frequency within, which I call 77%, 77.7%. And let that fix itself. Let that align itself. Let that do its thing. We don't need to be afraid, but we also need to know where we stand with this, right? Like, where's our boundary? Justice. where is your personal boundary
Yeah.
with things like AI?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So take it away, Selvia.
I love it. These are such perfect cards. Like I'm like, of course, of course, of course. So, you know, when, especially the word justice, for me, justice brings up Ma'at, and like Ma'at being like, you know, the mother of truth and balance and justice, right? And so many things. And on that note, it brings me to the word discernment. When we talk about like learning how to have, you know, how to utilize AI and boundaries and different things, it brings up the word discernment. But here's the thing with discernment is like, we are at a time where just sort of regular discernment ain't going to cut it. Like, we have to really get refined in our discernment. And the only way we can get refined in our discernment is through wisdom, through experience, right? And like learning through that experience. And what are we actually talking about when we talk about wisdom? Sophia, right? We're talking about the feminine intuition. Okay. So like discernment is a combination truly of intellect and intuition. You'll being able to utilize an action. Your discernment is to be able to, like, you know, action truth, right? So it's like based on all of this experience where you may have made mistakes in the past, or maybe you, like, whatever, you know, all of this. So discernment is really huge, which is why you will hear me say until I am blue in the face that this is your next level superpower for this particular time on the planet. And truly, yeah, it's like, it's really not to fear AI at all. And, you know, you spoke about Christ consciousness, which then brings me into this whole other realm of, you know, because I do read the scrolls and because I do study these Nazarene Bibles and like everything that's been coming up, and like I just really tap into a lot of these things. It's interesting that you know, you get a whole other perspective on Yeshua and Magdalene and things that are like have not been, you know, taught in the mainstream and all of the, right? And what we're understanding beyond simply Christ consciousness is that there was a greater mission. And the mission wasn't just simply about like ministering the word, which is beautiful and sacred, right? And like, you know, as we know, words create worlds, and you know, all of this and harmony. It was literally about the embodiment of Sophia Christ. Okay, like it's the embodiment, it's the wisdom that in turn elevates, expands, and evolves your frequency. And then it's about bringing that frequency to very particular places on the planet to be in collaboration with Gaia, right? And it is through that collaboration that supports the totality of evolution and the greater mission. When you're looking at, you know, where they traveled, whether they were in Egypt learning at the temples or whether they were out in Stonehenge, like we're looking at stargates. We're looking at like the original Essene lineages and Essene Templars, and the what the body held in frequency in order to go to these various locations and to, you know, support, protect, safeguard various aspects of these stargates. Fast forward to even just yesterday, the day before, on like these Trump comments about Project Stargate. I mean, we have to understand like where we're at and what we're doing, not from a place of fear, but this is why the mission becomes like, if you are here at this time on the planet to do the work, your mission is to do the embodiment so that you can become the frequency of love, of union consciousness, to then bring yourself, right, to the various places, right? Oh, I'm triggering past life memories. Oh, that's
good.
really sacred.
I'm hoping it's good, Debster.
I hope it's not bad.
Yeah. And what beautiful teachings. And I'm just called to say to people, you know, there are, you would be surprised how many beings are where we are.
Yeah.
And that there, you don't need to, because I can feel people often get anxious. They're like, well, what if I get it wrong? What if I go to this teaching, but they're wrong? And then I go to this one, but but maybe they're right and those guys are wrong, but they said this and they said that. Again, it's like there is an energy building.
Yeah.
And you will start to feel like you are being guided. You're being shown ways. Like, here is an incredible teacher, folks. Look at this phenomenal woman that's been working, growing, evolving, teaching, gathering, mentoring, and another one right here, right? So, like, we are here for you, and there are many more like us. And what I really encourage people to do is to like sample, look around, take Selvia's course, take some of my classes, take some of the other classes, go on other platforms, follow people where your heart feels called. And instead of going like, oh, but they didn't agree on this thing or whatever, just start to notice the commonality. Start to notice like, oh, and notice you're here listening today because you are where we are. You're ready to hear this.
Yeah.
And so take this and wait for the next clue. Look around and go, oh, that's more of what Selvia and ASHALA were saying the other day. Oh, there's my next little clue. There's my next little window. And instead of being anxious that it doesn't all match up perfectly, go with your heart and follow the clues and feel into it and notice the similarities and the things where you're like, okay, like this week, we're being so led as well with all of the different pieces of information. Like Selvia was saying, I don't watch the news, but I end up getting given news. And I used to, even before we had a lot of social media, I used to do that because, when I lived in the city and I would take public transit, and I used to always end up like reading the news that was literally on the newspaper on the seat when I sat down. Like I'd end up, sometimes I'd be right on the edge of the most interesting news of the week with my friends who read the paper constantly and watched the news constantly. And I always had just that like edge of the most great information because I let it come to me.
Yeah.
I let it pick me. I let the information find me. So allow this process, everyone. You are wise. Your hearts are beautiful. Your wisdom is powerful. You will not be misled. You will, if you can keep going and look for the patterns, look for the commonalities, look for the themes that make you feel, wow, this is what I'm ready for.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow the breadcrumbs. That's what I always say. Follow the breadcrumbs.
Right? Oh my gosh. How amazing. Heather's saying, thank you for this conversation. And you were made specially for your mission.
Yeah.
The stepping stones will show up.
Yeah.
So let's go into maybe some thoughts for this upcoming week. What are you tuning in with? We got onto the conversation about AI. Do you want to go any further with that, Selvia?
No, I mean, I think, no, we're good. I mean, you said something, again, you said the word mystery, right? And I'm a true believer in allowing the mystery to lead you, if that is even possible. That is the feminine. That is like, the mystery is the feminine, right? And this is why a lot of us are only now starting to come back to being in trust, being comfortable in the unseen and the unknown, and navigating in the dark, like literally like navigating where it's, like infinite potential, right? Which is the cosmos, the dark cosmos, all of this thing. Because we have been so used to and programmed to have it either like figured out, or everything is like linear, or like we need a path to follow. And it's like, no, the whole point to like spiritual expansion, self-development, all of this is to allow yourself to be undone by the great goddess, truly, which is
Mhm.
the mystery, right? And then really to find out through that undoing, like who you really are,
Mhm.
your authentic self, right? So I just think that in terms of AI, in terms of where we're at, simply put, my only suggestion for anybody who's willing to receive it is learn how to refine your discernment, right?
Mhm.
Just learn how to refine your discernment, and then you will be able to sniff out what is synthetic and organic. And it is, like I said, it's going to get increasingly more difficult to sniff that out because the synthetic is creating itself in a way to really, really mimic and parallel the organic, right? But so long as we dissolve those inner synthetic programs first,
Mhm.
as within so without, right, then we can easily or more easily
Mhm.
decipher what's true and untrue, right? So no, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? There's a lot of people around me, even people that I thought, oh, I didn't think they would ever really get into this AI technology piece very much. And, they're happily sort of jumping on board and letting AI counsel them, letting AI write their books, letting AI, solve their problems. And so what I'm noticing, like, there's a couple of things that I draw on with this from way back in the old days, right? I think it might have been one of Graham Hancock's books years ago talking about, we are the technology, like that whatever's being done there, like everything that AI is saying, it's gathered all that information from people, right? It's not like it went to source and got a special
No.
special deal, one-time deal. You get the line of info that humanity has been denied, right? It's like, no, AI is just basically reiterating and patterning. It's does a great job of patterning. So everybody learn to think like a Gemini. I am one. That's how come I can think the way I do, right?
Yeah.
It's like AI is a good patterner. That's all it is. It's good at recognizing patterns. It's just taking what humans have created. So all that wisdom that you're hearing, all that good advice, all that great information has been created and spoken and downloaded by people.
Yeah.
Right? So, on the one hand, recognizing that it's, first of all, it is less than what we are capable of because it doesn't add in the spark of the divine. It doesn't add in the intuition. Nowhere can it ever go that far, right? It can never go as far as having intuition. It can pretend it has intuition. And it is always about this trying to take a shortcut. And is it in our best interest to take a shortcut? What are we shortcutting to? To me, when I think about shortcut, I think about we're cutting ourselves off. We're cutting ourselves short
Yeah.
of our full capacity. And we're sort of idolizing this. And the other piece that I wanted to mention about it is it's just like, years ago when I studied cultural anthropology and we were talking about different cultures, indigenous people that got forcibly removed from their lands and their subsistence ways that they had been doing for thousands of years. And in one instance, this group were taken away from the islands where they lived for thousands of years in absolute harmony, flourished, had, a beautiful life, quality of life. And for 10 years, they were put in an artificial environment and their food was given to them. Everything was given to them. And by the time they went back 10 years later, they could not subsist anymore. After whatever it had been, 5,000 years of subsisting, in 10 years of artificial getting, on the grid,
Yeah.
they couldn't go back. So
Yeah.
what are you giving up if you're saying AI is going to write my book, AI is going to do my thinking, AI is going to counsel me, AI is going to solve my problems?
You're you're literally giving up your your birthright to creation.
Yeah.
It's God.
10 years from now. And, you know, just like anything else that's sold by the controllers, right? It's going to start off really good. It's going to taste good. It's going to look good. It's going to be
Totally.
real tempting, right? It's like, woo,
it's going to solve all the disease. It's going to like cure all your diseases.
It's a shortcut. It's going to cure your ills. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. You know, here's this vaccine for cancer, and here's this for that, and here's this for that. And it's like going to look easy, easy, easy. But guess what, folks? Slowly, they're going to roll it back. A little more. It wasn't quite as smart this year as it was, you know. I think about the first dollar stores when they came out, and it was like, oh God, you could get all this really amazing stuff for $1, right? Yeah. It was good quality stuff back then. I'll tell you, I went to the first dollar stores and it was great. That stuff was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh. But you get dependent on that. Walk in the dollar store now. Look at the quality. Walk in most department stores and look at the quality.
Exactly.
You know, it's easy then for them to just retrace that, pull back, pull back, pull back. And next thing, you are dumbed down, folks.
Totally.
You don't know how to solve your own problems. You don't know how to write your own books.
No. And that's, you know, again, remember that whatever we create with integrity that comes through this field, this body, right, holds a frequency. And we need that frequency to vibrate as it does in order to evolve in the way that we're capable of evolving. Like we can, you know, I do a whole thing on this in what I call becoming the temple. Like I teach on the divine human, like raising the dead and like understanding what this actually, even like this, these are ancient Egyptian like teachings, right? And just understanding our divine capacity, right? And what we're capable of in so many ways. But I love what you're saying about the dollar store thing, because that, like, exactly the essence of what you are speaking to, right? Which you can see run rampant across all market platforms today, right? Just like with, whether that's just like product-based goods and our food system, the quality of our food, like the quality of our clothing, all of these things. This is one of the biggest things that I do in terms of when I'm creating experiences for people, or when I'm creating like these pilgrimages and these retreats, right? The name of it is Eluxura, which really means like returning the light, which is lux, to luxury. Returning luxury to the organic field, the natural field. This is what that is.
Yeah.
Right? This is not materialistic luxury. This is like, it's in the details that were hand woven with love and intention that you will feel.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I'm laughing because in one of my books, I wrote about luxury and indulgence. The difference between luxury and indulgence is that the luxury is the thing that you literally slow down and take the experience deeply within and have a communion with it.
Yep.
And then indulgence is just something where you're trying to get something shortcut, right? Like that's been one of my greatest life lessons, honestly, Selvia, is learning that efficiency is the dark force, you know, the efficiency is the dark force. And this idea that we have to hurry and we have to take a shortcut. It's like, okay, if AI is so great, guess what? Let's put it to the test of, why don't we work on ourselves for 100 years and let the creators of AI work on that for 100 years, and we'll see which is better in 100 years.
Yeah.
Right? Why not? Like, is there a time limit on this, folks? Like, what are we in the hurry for?
But yeah, this is exactly it. But that's so that's the issue. And in terms of like time, because that's illusionary. And so we're in this for the long game. Like, this is what people don't understand. There's no rush when you're working with a quantum field.
Yeah.
Right. We're in it for the long game. And so, you know, and even in breath work, like there's there's aspects, there's parts of the spine that actually tap into this sort of like program and wounding that's been bestowed on very parts of the body that keep us stuck in this belief that we're running out of time because we're a death adverse society.
Yep.
We fear death
Yep.
when we need to understand that it's simply there's no death. You know what I mean? And again, another ancient Egyptian beautiful teaching, because they made death a science. They were obsessed with death and understanding like that there is no death, that you're able to travel, right? And how they did that into expanded states of consciousness, understanding consciousness, right? This is where like we need to go. We need to understand this in order to build the courage and the strength to move through a lot of the programming.
This has been a delight, Selvia. And I am so grateful that you are bringing this wisdom in all the ways that you do. And I look so forward to working with you in the future and coalescing and weaving our offerings in some way, because they're really in alignment, and I'm deeply touched about it, deeply honored. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you all feel that, everybody? Can you feel it? Are you with us here? It is pretty special, isn't it? No mistakes. It's, yeah. And, you know, just feeling that love for all of our platform, everybody, like everybody is bringing such a beautiful piece of the puzzle, such incredible wisdom. I feel very, very grateful. We're getting lots of good feedback here. So before we sign out, of course, as always, well, let's just pop back over and have a look at your breathwork class coming up. I'm going to do my very best to be there. This looks incredible. And so yeah, the part one being more, and you do the way I teach as well, Selvia, which is I like to really bring the background, the history, the science, all of those pieces, because I think it helps people relax into, okay, this is real. Like these practices have been around forever. They've been used in these extraordinary ways. They have this scientific, you know, study that's been done on them. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to take us I almost say it's like when we learn the history of things, when we learn about the origin of stuff and how it's utilized, and like that's what you're talking about, right? The self-development, self-awareness, the discernment. When we learn that, it's almost like we've carved out a beautiful bowl to hold the practice in.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're dealing with, you're just following, like Simon says, what the teacher says, right?
Yeah.
But if you actually develop the information that holds that practice.
Yeah.
And that's how the great wisdom traditions have always been taught, you know, the great care and attention into the stories, into the background, into the narrative of the lineages and so on, so that you create this beautiful bowl to hold all that practice in.
Yeah.
So I love the way Selvia is doing this, and
thank you.
Highly recommend this for all of you. And for this time of where we are in this month, coming into the month of March, coming into this week with the new moon in Pisces, a lot of that inward. What a perfect time to work with our breath. And let's just take a sec here to come on over to the Beyond Mystic Consultations page. Here you can find us, our readings. There we are. Womb healing, sapphire flame session. Beautiful. And there's my psychic tarot readings. Yeah. And then, of course, as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe on the Beyond Mystic YouTube channel. And follow us over here on Rumble. So I guess we're wrapping up. We're over the hour. It went by in like a flash.
I know.
That's a delight, Selvia, and I look forward to meeting you in person at the conference and meeting so many of you, our lovely followers. And we'll be back next Tuesday. I'll be back with Meg. Hopefully she'll be ready to go, and have a beautiful week, everybody.
Thank you so much. Sending you guys all love, so much love. Thank you so much again, ASHALA.
My pleasure, my honor. Bye for now, everybody.